Welcome back to Shatter Our Souls with Novaria. And welcome back to another Metroid Monday. Now, admittedly today I'm kind of thinking it's going to be a opportunity to get some extra gear set up because I have two main goals for today. First being, of course, to get the boost ball. Second being to get the space jump boots. With that in mind, it's going to be a fair bit of combat, fair bit of running around because why not? Now, I was doing a little bit of I suppose, considering where the Metroid franchise would go. I can definitely see Prime 4 leaning more heavily into the Hunters storyline of the Prime franchise, in which each of the various hunters, that being Silex, Trace, Noxus, Weevil, Spire, I'm forgetting one. Each of them had their own motivations, and I think that will tie in nicely. Maybe not all of them. We know Silex for certain, but how many of those characters are going to come back, and how much of this new game is going to tie in to the various worlds and the various hunters that show up throughout the franchise are more going to show up, we don't know. My guesstimation is that moving forward with the franchise, bounty hunters are going to be a much more common theme, especially in the post-Metroid Dread side of the franchise. Now, this isn't something that I've talked about to this point in time, and it's partially because I don't necessarily like pushing into theory territory. But I believe that post Metroid Dread, there's going to be a huge push towards more bounty hunters. Samus has become singled out in this world as being possibly the single most dangerous entity in the galaxy, in the universe. She has the DNA of the Metroids lying dormant. She is rogue in that she has gone against the wishes of the Galactic Federation when it came to the BSL station on, or in Metroid Fusion, has destroyed several of the Galactic Federation's reconnaissance drones as well. She's also fought against the Chozo. She's fought against virtually everything that has made her to be what she is today, have now seen her as a threat. Now, what's interesting about this is that she's kind of in limbo right now. As she is the only individual to have Metroid DNA at the moment, she is also the only defense against the X-Parasite. But she is also the unstable with said DNA. There's no telling what Samus is going to end up doing or being forced into in the later sections of the series, because if I'm being honest, after Dread, I believe that Samus will end up having to go into... Why did I... I've got a little bit of a trigger finger, apparently. I'm itching to go. Anyways, I have a feeling that Samus will be going into hiding after Dread. Not because she wants to, but because at this point in time, living a peaceful existence is better than being on the run constantly. And I don't believe that the Federation that the Federation will leave her be peacefully for her days. That's my 2 cents on it. Now, if you're, I am a little bit curious, and I ask a little bit every video, but what are your theories for what Prime 4 and Metroid Dread are going to look like? As I've stated, mine are all about the hunters and that faction, which have been underrepresented as of this point in the franchise. And while I'm thinking about that and touching down with this, I suppose, I also believe that phase and phase on will still be present, albeit not in the same capacity. And would you look at that, we have our dragon friend nearby. Now, for those in the know, you would know that Ridley is Samus's archenemy. Ridley is everything that Samus wants or is against. If you know the history of the character all the way back to her humble beginnings, you'll know that Ridley was responsible for Samus's parents' death. In fact, he killed them right in front of her. And while that's not at all positive, it was a direct result of numerous other factors, like the fact that the Chozo were actually passing by the planet K2L, which is where they were, when said event happened. The Chozo had taken in Samus to effectively try to right the wrong that they had done. From there, she had been trained for their military, biologically augmented to be able to handle their technology, the power suit, etc. The Chozo had a habit, at least the Chozo of the planet Zebes, had a habit of not really letting anything sit idle. They were always experimenting and trying to grow. The Chozo of ZDR, notably Ravenbeak, was one of the DNA donors to try to build Samus into their ideal for these armors. The other was Quiet Robe, which will tie back into my earlier statements, that Samus will have to find a way to control the Metroid DNA. Quiet Robe was of a sect or a section of the Chozo that was capable of controlling the Metroids. To me, this sounds as though there are latent abilities that Samus has yet to fully grasp and understand within the game or within the series as a whole. The other side of this is the Federation side. Now, I haven't really touched on it because a lot of what we get from the Federation side of Samus's backstory comes from the very anti-Metroid game that we do not speak of. And from that, we can gain some information about how Samus as a whole was turned into the person that she was. Very self-reliant, very in-control individual. Very willing to put herself in harm's way for the betterment of others. Wow, these guys are spongy today. So, there are pieces that I think do fit. Anywho, we're on our way back up to Talon Overworld here, because we need to get the space jump boots. From there, I'm thinking we're gonna do a trip through the Chozo ruins, do a quick loop around, see what I can get, and then either back to the ship or back to Fendrana Drifts because we got some more work to do over there, hopefully to defeat the um, fully grown adult Shigar. If that happens today, great. If it doesn't, I apologize. I don't want to overextend on the length of these videos. Now, I did kind of touch on it earlier with the Metroid Prime Hunters. And I'm more so interested in a couple of the characters. Weevil, Xylix are the two that I'm most concerned with. Xylix was assumed or confirmed, I can't recall which, to have been using Stolen Federation tech, which would explain Xylix's unique armor set and capabilities within Hunters. Weevil, on the other hand, was using the technology of the space pirates. Theoretically, between the pair of them, you have the three, well, between them and Samus, you have the three main forces in the galaxy showing up once again in a duel of some sort. The pirates, the Federation, and the Chozo, each having their hand extended towards whatever the goal of 4 would be. Perhaps it's domination, maybe it's something as simplistic as survival on the line. We don't know. But I'd like to think that there's more to this than meets the eye. Anywho, enough speculation territory, I suppose. We now have the space jump boots. So, with the space jump boots in hand, we're going to sort out a couple of things. Now, I suppose a further deep dive into the lore of the game. The first I'd like to mention is phase and phase on. Nobody exactly knows when phase on came, or the planet phase, or phase on the chemical came into existence. What we do know within the lore of the games that I've come across is that roughly 50 years before the events of Prime 1, a meteor landed on Talon 4. That would be the impact site. That is the main hub, or the end game location, if you will. And started to leach Phazon into the planet. But more than just leaching Phazon into the planet, it also took a host of sorts. In each of the Phazon, or the phase meteors, there is a creature, a beast of significant strength, that is acting as a guardian. This guardian is equally dependent on the Phazon seed as the seed is dependent on the guardian. The guardian gains strength, proportional to how much Phazon it absorbs. In exchange for the amount of Phazon it absorbs, it gives off... In exchange for the Phazon that is absorbed by the guardian defends the Phazon seed from threats outside. So in the case of Prime 1, that would be the Metroid Prime. A Talon Metroid that got stuck within the hive, or within the meteor, that had been mutated into a gigantic creature, hardened armor, and was effectively unrecognizable from its prior state. at the later stage of its life. In Prime 2, that would be the Ing hide. I think that's how you pronounce it. What I know about them more so is that the Emperor of the Ing was the primary benefactor of the Aether Seed. I think I just forgot something up there. Hang on a sec. So, with that, there's a little bit to dive into regarding that. But the Chozo didn't really like the idea of the seed in and of itself being on their planet, not knowing what it was capable of or what it would eventually end up doing. They chose to try and seal it away using their technology, a series of 12 keys. And effectively blocked the seed itself, within a barrier. The rest of the planet, hopefully, to be untouched by Phazon. This, however, was not the case. The Phazon leached lower down into the core and began to create alternative issues for the Chozo that included their water going sour and causing decay and illness, while also dealing with the fact that their planet itself was dying, turning into something else, something more dangerous than what it was. The wildlife that had been exposed became more hostile. But it was believed that their savior, the one who would be able to end this plague that was created by this Phazon, this mutagen, would come from the stars. One not of their kind, but wearing their armor. Symbolically, a source of safety and sanctuary from which they themselves gave long ago. Now, at some point or another, near the end of the Chozo's life cycle on Talon 4, they did shed their mortal coil, but remained vigilant and guardians of the planet Talon 4, as they had been for decades, millennia prior. I think that kind of shows a sense of duty and is very indicative of what the Chozo typically are personified as. I'll admit that the later iterations of the Chozo, like Ravenbeak, were very unexpected. But, it is as it is. I'm just doing what I do. Anywho. Space Pirates, on the other hand, after the fall of their primary facilities on the planet Zebes, had 3 separate ships go out into the universe. The frigate Orpheon, which is the one I will focus on this time, ended up here along with Meta Ridley, hoping to find a place to turn into a new base of operations. And they, of course, stumbled upon Phazon, this highly mutagenic substance that also had properties that would allow them to harness mass power very quickly. It was effectively a win-win for them if they could harness and use this to its full potential. So, they took to experimenting with it. Their experiments yielded questionable results at first. Anything they tested it on had a shortened lifespan. I'm not getting through this room, am I? Couldn't remember what was back here. So, yeah, volcano room. And, okay, grapple hooks, got it. The space pirates then opted for option B, testing on smaller life forms such as the parasite queen. The idea being to understand how their it would be either beneficial or harmful to them should they attempt to use this in the future for their needs, their gains. And the results were mixed. The size, strength, power of each of their respective creatures that they tested it on increased exponentially. Lifespan, however, decreased. But in the drive, the interest of the power that they sought, they began not only to try and find a way to the impact crater to harness as much of that phazon energy as they could, but also aimed to find ways of incorporating phazon into their military. This can be seen through the elite pirate program, in which they attempted, in the later portions of the game, to infuse phazon into a number of their soldiers. This had some very impressive results, especially when it came to power and destructive capabilities. I can hear it, I can't see it. Okay. Well, I'll come back with the spider ball in 3 episodes-ish, probably. Which is all well and good. It's almost a full circle moment for them. Ah, I knew there was a hole back here. What is that? I think it's just a missile tank. It's just a missile tank. Okay. Sorry, I'm a little bit distracted tonight, apparently. Okay. That looks like it's bombable. Bombable, but not worthwhile. Got it. Not scannable. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Sorry, let my curiosity get the best of me there. Now, one of the things I think that draws me to the character of Samus, and something that I find is often overlooked about Samus is very protective. Not just of anything and of the planets she comes across. In Zero Mission, her entire job was just defeat the space pirates, any means necessary. That was it. That was her goal. That was her job. And yet you see throughout the course of the game that she attempts on numerous occasions, looking at Zero Mission specifically, that she's trying to take a path that eliminates the problem without destroying the planet. Now we know that from the source of Super Metroid that she would have the capability to be able to destroy a planet if she so sought out, which speaks to her raw strength and whatnot. She has that capability, but she never goes to those lengths. She never chooses to do so. It is only after everything goes haywire that it becomes a last-ditch effort or a result of alternative problems that crop up. It is never her intent. Now, in Super Metroid, we have the canon of you can save or kill the animals in the final escape sequence. And most people say that you should or should not. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, your decision is your decision. But the animals return the favor later. It could be that they're smart, it might not be, who knows. But the thing is that she's caring, she's passionate. She has all the power in the world at her fingertips. And yet, often chooses the most peaceful solution she can out of hubris, out of interest to protect the planet at large. Which I honestly think is amazing as a character trait for this being. By the time Dread rolls around, she is by far the single most dangerous entity. And yet, I don't believe that Samus is actually going to seek a path that is going to be dangerous. She's going to try to seek a path of solace, fighting only when fought. So, there are a number of things that kind of draw me to this world, this character. And I'm curious if there's something that draws each of you to this character, this in general. Because Samus has been kind of a oddly bright character as a general rule, even from her origins as one of the strongest and earliest female characters that were ever brought up in Nintendo or in gaming in general. And while this might be a little bit of bias, I also believe that she is by far the most powerful, but also one of the more relatable characters within all of the space age fantasy that shows up across gaming. She is very unique in that regard. Anyways, by the looks of my time at the moment, I am going to have to cut this a little bit short, which means next time we will be starting by tackling the Shigoth. Where am I going here? Oh, yep, there's the door. Sorry, I got myself a little bit turned around there. And hopefully infiltrating the space pirate research base in Phendrana. Now, before I shut all this down for the night, I would like to say that I hope you enjoyed tonight's little bit of a deep dive on Metroid as a whole, a little bit of its history, a little bit of theory, and hopefully next time we can touch on something different, something else, something unique. Until that happens, however, I simply hope that you like the video, subscribe to the page, and I hope you have a good one. Be good to one another. This is Novaria, signing off.